Да.
Здрасте. Смотрите, я уже...
Hello, everyone. My name is Olesya Maybach, and I am moderator for our first discussion today, for our first session today. Just before we begin, let me ask our reporters, are they here? So I see that Konstantin Vishnevsky, who will have our first presentation, he is here. After Konstantin, we will hear a presentation from Daniil Yatskin, and I see Daniil. And then we will hear a presentation from Kumar Sujanhu. Kumar, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here only.
Yeah, it's great. And also the final presentation will be from Tamara Zinina. And Tamara is here. I also can see her. So I am very excited about today's session. And I believe, yes, we have the one topic. It is a topic about the future of IT. And I believe that this is a topic that is discussed by a lot of people on a lot of conferences. So a lot of things already have been said, but I believe that our session is very, very curious because we have, I would say, we have three different approaches from our presentations. Presentation by Konstantin will be very systematic, a little bit provocative, and I believe that this is a very intriguing topic of this presentation and a very, very interesting approach on how we are looking at the future of IT as a very this is a very systematic approach. Then we will have more mythological presentation by Daniil. This will be a presentation that is very close to my heart because I also was a part of this project. So I will be so excited to hear from Daniil about little ideas and nuances that were created during the research about the scenarios for IT sector. And then we have two, I would say, more practical presentations. The first presentation by Kumar will be about Russia and its role in the war for chips. And then we will have the presentation by Tamara about smart cities. So this will be two presentations about the results, about some new findings that we got after some research. So we will have more systematic, more, I would say, maybe theoretical presentation, more mythological one, and then two more practical presentations. So I am very excited to hear from you. And the first speaker is Konstantin Vishnevsky from HEC University. Konstantin, the floor is yours.
Да, спасибо большое, Олеся. Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Меня действительно зовут Константин Вишневский, и я немножко так, может быть, провокативно озаглавил свою презентацию как «Голодные ИИ-игры», «Hunger Games» по-английски, потому что я постарался сделать такую, наверное, не классическую для себя и для моих коллег, может быть, презентацию. Скорее, это будет не презентация каких-то результатов наших проектов многочисленных, не презентация наших разработок, наработок. Это скорее будет такое размышление вслух.
Aha moments. No,
It's going to be a think aloud presentation. AI is developing at a fast pace, and it's basically a bubble. And as a rule of thumb, any bubble may burst. So where can it be, when it can burst? Where is the thin spot that may burst? So we can see a lot of exciting things, that ChatGPT is now accessible to 800 million around the world. By the end of 2025, there will be 1 billion ChatGPT users. AI market is estimated at 300 billion. By 2030, it will grow by 10 times. So it's a quantum leap in terms of the number of users, in terms of the market itself. Like hedge funds can pay $1 million for the weather forecast because it has an impact on the futures, on agricultural crops, and it's easier for them to invest so that they can get their return. The small state of Anguilla gets 20% of its GDP from the sale of 3 symbols, .ai. So they can sell this domain to every enthusiast. So it's not .com, it's not .org, not .ru, but it's .ai. So they sell domains, 20% of their GDP. We all use generative AI, but we have to understand what's the underpinning foundation for this. And there are 4 pillars: energy, computing power, data, and human intelligence, natural intelligence. So let's start with energy hunger, energy deficit. I think you're aware that it's the graphical processors, GPUs that are in charge of AI. When I trained my first model, I had a choice using the central processing unit, CPU, conventional one, and it would take me 44 hours, and I decided to use a graphic processing unit, and it took me an hour. So you now understand why graphic processors are used. The demand for graphic processors is growing, at an exponential. Its efficiency is improving, and within one cycle, its efficiency has increased by 60% if you compare the chips of one generation. But demand is growing by 30%. So even if you boost productivity, you cannot catch up with demand. Now, if you look at global energy consumption, 1.5% is used by data centers, and by 2030, it would be 8%. And broken down by the countries, there's a lot of variety. In the US, it's 4.5%. And the growth that we can see until 2030, 50% of that will be driven by energy consumption in data centers. And there's another big trend emerging. Data centers is something that you might be aware of. The data centers do have another major issue. To the left below, you have another important chart. So you can build data centers, but it's not easy to hook them up to energy grids. And there are developed countries. For developed countries, it could take up to 7 years. So we can build a data center, but we don't really know when it's going to be hooked up to an energy grid, to the energy grid. So we're having an energy deficit right now. Everyone's talking about SDGs. Well, it could be a little bit of not in the spotlight at the moment, but again, we have to provide fossil fuel. 56% of energy for data centers comes from fossil fuel, and in China, it's 70%. It's coal. Data centers have to be set up. You need to lay the cables. We need some transformer stations. We can build a data center, but cables may be in deficit, and no one's talking about this. So we are inflating a bubble, but the economy does not catch up. What we're seeing is that we have more efficient models, GigaChat, DeepSeek, ChatGPT. But to train all of these models, we as humanity have spent quite a huge amount of resources and a huge amount of energy. The cumulative energy that we spent on training LLMs could have helped us to provide energy to 500,000 households. If you take like big cities like Prague or Berlin, you can see that the huge chunk of people, huge districts which could have been powered by energy. And who will have the upper hand? It's those countries that have AI, that have energy supremacy. Those countries who have nuclear energy. Developing countries are supplying about half of internet users, but these developing countries only host 10% of these data centers, so there's a lot of space.
Еще интересный факт, то есть понятно, что я, как и все, регулярно использую все генеративные модели.
I'm a regular user of generative AI models, and my 5-year-old girl often asks me, let's ask generative AI to generate some picture or a video for before I go to bed. And whenever I ask AI, this AI spends as much energy as it's an energy which is necessary to charge and recharge my laptop. In terms of computing power, investment is huge. Like Stargate invested about 500 billion over the next 4 years in the AI infrastructure, particularly for OpenAI. It's the company who's come up with ChatGPT. But initially, what was the scale of investment? Microsoft provided the supercomputer for them, and that was enough. It's like we only had 10,000 GPUs, and that cost them 1 billion. Currently, 1 billion is not enough. To train ChatGPT-4, we needed $100 million, while it only cost 12 billion for ChatGPT-3, so it's an exponential growth. The market, there's an oligopoly in the market. We've heard a lot about NVIDIA. NVIDIA owns 65% of the GPU market, and the rest, AMD and Intel, share 18 and 16 respectively. And so these three companies basically own the market. So generative AI market to the left, 92%, that's NVIDIA.
В основном NVIDIA сейчас работает как раз на то, чтобы поставлять предприятиям,
And NVIDIA
которые занимаются
supplies
искусственным интеллектом, вот эти свои чипы.
their
И
chips
было очень
to
любопытно
the
наблюдать,
enterprises
когда
that are in charge of AI.
когда
And
появился DeepSeek,
when
и у
DeepSeek
людей возникло
emerged,
ощущение, что, боже мой,
there was a panic in the
оказывается,
market,
можно
and people
обучать
thought
модели более
that you can train
эффективно,
the
более
models in a more
надежно и так
efficient way,
далее.
in a more
И
reliable
акции
way.
NVIDIA там за день
And
просто
NVIDIA
там
stocks
потеряли порядка 18%
lost about
стоимости и так далее.
18% of their
Но интересный
capitalization.
факт заключается в том, что позже уже стало известно, что DeepSeek во многом базировался на наработках других компаний, в том числе компании
DeepSeek,
Meta, запрещенной на
has
территории
emerged,
Российской Федерации. И
relied heavily
любопытный
on
факт в том,
the
что
insights of other
и компания
companies
Meta,
like Meta, which
и
is
сам
banned on the
DeepSeek
territory of the Russian
обучался
Federation. Meta and
на
DeepSeek
графических
were trained
процессорах
using
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA
Да, там какие-то
GPUs.
интересные вещи с точки зрения оптимизации, да, но по-прежнему все упирается, грубо говоря, в одного производителя.
So
И
they
когда
streamlined
в
some of the
начале этого года, в
training
январе, был
methodology, but
землетрясение
it
на
still
Тайване, то
relied on
внезапно
that
бац,
single
и
producer.
прервалась
And if you
цепочка
take,
поставок. И вот достаточно одного
and there
такого
was an
джокера,
earthquake
что
on
называется,
Taiwan,
какого-то
and there
слабого
was
сигнала, то есть он реализовался, и
like a weak signal, a joker,
тут же начались еще
and
большие дисбалансы в этой области.
you know,
То есть
since
рынок
Taiwan
получается
is one of the
крайне
major chip
неустойчив. То есть все
producers,
растет,
you
но
had
это
markets
двигается на
tumbling, and
нескольких, прям
you
очень
know,
таких
you
бутылочных,
can see that yes, it seems to be growing, but there are so many
и по большому счету
bottlenecks.
сейчас спрос
There
на
could be
графический
power
процессор у нас в
supply
3 раза
chain
превышает
disruptions, and the demand
предложение.
for
И
GPUs is
вот вся
3
эта
times
ситуация
higher
приводит к
than
тому, что
supply.
по большому счету развитие больших языковых моделей, развитие искусственного интеллекта — это удел избранных. То есть
And the
90% всего того,
development of
что может быть
AI
open source,
basically
что есть на
is
рынках,
for
это в
the
основном
elite.
генерируется
What we
такими
can see is
бигтеками.
open
То есть те компании,
source
у которых
that's
выручка
generated by
более
big
1
techs with
миллиарда долларов. Еще один
capitalization
любопытный факт, допустим,
with a
многие из
revenue of more
элитных
than $1
гениев,
billion
которые
US
пару
dollars.
миллионов, пару
Okay,
миллиардов,
you may find
решили
some
сделать что-то
few
свое
billion,
интересное
and you
и
want to
купили
invest in your own
графические
project. You can
процессоры.
buy your own GPUs.
Нюанс в том, что через 2-3 года ваши графические процессоры устареют, и они будут никому не нужны.
But
То
your
есть
GPUs
с их
will
помощью
be
вы не сможете
outdated in
никого
2 or 3
обучить.
years, and you will not be
И
able to
по
train
сути вы делаете
anyone
инвестиции,
using them.
которые
So you
не успеют
invest,
окупиться. То есть
which you
вам
will not be
надо
able to
через
pay
2-3
back.
года, чтобы оставаться на
You won't have
рынке,
the time.
инвестировать еще больше,
You
в
will need
5
to
раз, в
invest even
10
more,
раз
like 5 times,
больше и
10
так далее.
times
И
to
по
stay in
сути,
the
с
market.
точки зрения, опять же, форсайта, это говорит о том, что
In terms of
вот такая
foresight, it means
экстраполяция,
that
просто приведет к тому, что пузырь лопнет.
this
И
market will,
единственный
this
вариант, то есть
bubble
как-то
will
этого
burst.
избежать, это думать о некоторых новых
And what can
технологических
you do? You
принципах.
need to think
Например,
of new
квантовые вычисления,
technology
которые могут
principles
быть
like quantum
более
computing,
эффективными, чем
which could be more efficient
графический процессор в сотни и более раз. Следующий нюанс —
than
данные. Следующий
GPUs
ресурс,
by
за которым,
hundreds
безусловно, идет
of times. Then the
борьба,
data,
арена сражений и так далее,
that's
то есть
where the
данные.
fight goes
Для того,
on.
чтобы обучить
That's what the
GPT-4,
people are
модель
fighting
использовала
for. It's a
45
commodity.
терабайт текстовых данных. То есть
So
это
GPT-4 used
огромное количество
45
книг.
terabyte of
И
data.
сейчас
That's a
генерится то,
large
что
number
многие
of
даже
books.
как-то с трудом могут представить. 2,5 квантиллиона байтов данных сейчас
Currently,
генерируется
we
каждый день.
generate
Но нюанс в том,
2.5
что современный
quintillion
искусственный интеллект, он
bit of
нормально
data
работает, когда у вас данные
every day.
структурированные,
But
размечены и
it's
так
good
далее.
when you
И
have
сейчас так
structured
получается, что
data.
менее чем
But
1%
currently,
таких данных
there's just
структурировано
less
и
than 1% of
размечено.
structured
В чем
data
дело? Слева специально привел некоторые картиночки, которые говорят о том, что
that have been
очень
tagged. And
скоро
to the left, you
вот
can see
все
the chart that
имеющиеся
very
естественные
soon,
данные, которыми мы
all of the
располагаем, они уже
natural
будут
data that we
использованы
have
в генеративном
will be
искусственном
used up
интеллекте. То
by
есть, мы говорим
generative
о том, что с
AI.
26 до 32
So
года,
by
то есть вот мы запихнем в искусственный
between
интеллект все, что смогли
2026 and
нагенерить.
2032, we'll be able to
Соответственно,
put into AI
следующий
whatever
шаг —
we
это
have been able to
генерация
generate over this
синтетических
time.
данных.
Then we'll have to
И
generate
ожидаем,
synthetic
что уже
data.
прям совсем скоро, по
And
самым
expect
радикальным
that very
прогнозам,
soon,
чуть ли не в 26 году,
you
90% всех данных, которые будут
by
онлайн, они будут
2026,
синтетические. Они или будут
90% of the
либо
data
синтетические,
that
либо
you can
будут так
find
называемые
online will be
мусорные данные.
synthetic or some waste
И
data.
еще один любопытный момент, что когда мы говорим о чем-то более специфическом, то есть мы
Now,
понимаем, что для таких
talking of
областей
more
социально
specific
важных, как,
things,
например,
like
медицина,
for
то есть мы
public
можем себе
interest
позволить там
objects
безболью генерить
like
какие-то данные и так далее. То
medicine,
есть вот,
we
по крайней
cannot
мере, сейчас
generate
на первых
some
этапах, на
artificial
первых
data.
шагах нам нужны
We
высококачественные,
need to have high
размеченные данные,
quality
структурированные и
data
так
that
далее.
have
Но
been
эти
tagged
данные
and
могут стоить
structured.
каких-то
But
колоссальных
these
денег.
data
То есть
can
для того,
cost
чтобы,
a lot of
например,
money.
использовать в медицине,
if you want to use it in medicine, data set can cost $500 million. And so it means that only big techs can afford it. And they would need new principles of how to arrange all this. And finally, the so-called biases. Since AI is trained on the data that we currently have, it could be a sexist and racist. So that's the kind of biases that it might have. It analyzes the data in an unbiased way. You can see that most of the CEOs are male, and when you ask it to portray a typical CEO, they will give you a male person, and you would need to add additional prompts to get a woman. And you also have Africa, Asia, and their cultures are a little bit different. Usually AI is trained based on the data from the West. So usually it's Anglo English language books and articles. So it could be French, it could be Latin-based languages. And we've had a lot of insightful reports in 2025. We had surveys which say that every fifth organization expects that within the next 3 years, they will have to retrain more than half of their staff. So half of your staff will need to get new skills, and one of them would be the use of generative AI. To the left, you can see that, surprisingly, for most of the professions that are related to AI, there's still a deficit, but the situation has improved somewhat. 85% of the organizations say that it's hard for them to hire high-quality data scientists in AI. And interestingly, we have heard about AI agents, and one agent could, if you want to go on vacation, one agent can help you with the tickets, the other can help you pick a hotel, and the other would look up the weather, and the fourth one would arrange all of this. And these agents can interact without getting back to you. So they can do it instead of you, and you produce the result served to you on a silver platter. And so there was a piece of research on who's going to run all of this. And curiously, those who can run people, they're really good at running AI agents. So they can set the task in a clear way, they can give you feedback if necessary. So the correlation is more than 80%. And it means that what's the difference between human and a robot or bot? First, you have to have emotional intelligence and strategic thinking when you understand what's needed. And there's one more fact that's often asked by the journalists. Like everyone says that AI will replace all of us. But serious research says that it will be on the contrary. Like, some of the professions may be replaced and may die, but we'll have more professions that will emerge, particularly related in AI. Like twice as many professions will emerge. So there's a duality. So we'll see growing demand for AI specialists and big data specialists to address this boom. But there's also strategic thinking, creative thinking that will be handy, so that you can differentiate important data from from some rubbish and what you can believe and things that are fake. You need to have this skill to differentiate between these two entities. And the presentation of data was set up using AI. They're not open source solutions, but including the AI, which like iFora, which was set up at here, the High School of Economics. And there are different services which generate different layers and different stories, and we've generated the hypothesis, trends, we studied patterns, media sources. So this very presentation was created using AI. So we found Kurzweil and Elon Musk. We extracted the information from their reports. We assessed the black swans. And through the combination of LLMs and the benchmark corpus of documents, like RAG, the retrieval augmented generation, that helped to present this report for you today. And we've summarized the reports, which are 400 pages long. And I very much hope that during the next presentation, it will be generated not from different bits and pieces. And I hope that I will set the task for this multi-agent network, and it will look at the patterns, it will look at the publications, and will make a ready-made presentation out of it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Konstantin. Very interesting presentation. A lot of pessimistic and a lot of optimistic facts. And of course, it was a big surprise for me that it was a presentation created by using AI. Please tell me how many time did it require to create this presentation?
Frankly speaking, just 3 hours.
Wow, it's awesome. It's awesome. So many information. Okay. So everyone, what do you think about this presentation? Do you have any question, any thoughts? Please share.
У меня скорее есть небольшое там дополнение.
Well, I can have a comment.
Константин высказал по поводу употребления электроэнергии.
Now, on energy consumption, the International Energy Agency released a report that data centers will increase consumption by 2030. It will double. And what we have today is that 1.5% of energy consumption is for the data centers, and by 2030 it will equal consumption of Japan. So it's energy consumption of one country. That's how much energy will be needed for data centers. So that's true. In this case, energy problems are very acute. Yeah. That's absolutely true. What I remember is that I saw an advertising and where a tip, if you want to save the planet, just get rid of the email that you keep on your servers. I make so many photos every day, and I record so much video every day. Then it doesn't really make sense to delete the emails, because I will compensate that with my videos.
I have, I don't know, maybe it is too specific, but I'm curious about data and data protection. Is it a big deal that all data will be analyzed and utilized by LLM? And are many people interested in creating the new data that will not be analyzed, and how they are trying to protect this data from being utilized by LLM?
Да, безусловно, это на самом деле очень важный вопрос. Он не дали пару
absolutely, that's a very important issue. Just a few hours ago, we raised this issue at the Foresight session in AI when we looked at the future of AI in foresight research. It's hard to delete the information from the LLMs. We had a few cases when people found their photos. When they asked them to generate something, they saw a person who really looked alike, which looked like them, and we had a lot of scandals. But once you upload it, it's very difficult to do anything about it. And there's a new trend of a movement to protect the data, how you worsen your data so that an LLM would not capture them, would not index them. So we see that they've pushed the gas pedal to the full, but we need some kind of a braking mechanism that would slow down the development of AI, and that's a major issue.
Thank you, Konstantin. And Jose Cardeira shared his thoughts in the chat. He said about the amount of energy that our brain consumes right now is 20 watts, and not 20 megawatts that is some LM today. And in the future, in the next 20 years, the energy consumption by AI, it will improve about 1 million times. So maybe it is true that we have seen nothing yet. And we have a question by Sergey. He's asking about поисковые заделы. Можете, пожалуйста, пояснить, Сергей, о чем ваш вопрос?
Clarify your
Поисковые заделы в i4.
About i4 query prompts or templates. I think it's about what was mentioned several hours ago. Query templates in AI, and we can brief you in greater detail. I'll leave my email, so write to me and I will send you additional information.
Thank you, Konstantin, and thank you, Jadwiga, thank you, Jose. So let's move on to our second presentation today. Daniil from HEC University will tell us about the scenarios for IT market. The floor is yours.
Да, здравствуйте, коллеги. Я, в отличие от Константина, как раз расскажу про проект, который мы делали при поддержке Яндекса.
Unlike Konstantin, I'll tell you about the project we did in association with Yandex and the outcomes and the findings. So probably more metaphysical than what Konstantin told you. So our goal was to determine the IT market development scenarios and identify the factors and drivers. And it is a broad, overarching goal. And as a matter of fact, we didn't confine ourselves to anything, and we received lots of different findings. It was a very, very large-scale study. And as a result of interim conclusions and findings, we got some more specific and some more general things. In return, I could spend 2 days telling you about that, but the forthcoming 2 days will be the weekend. And so we are preparing a report in great detail. And now let me focus on some methodology. I hope I will be able to confine my train of thoughts. So the results of ours, the outcomes. Actually, we have analyzed a lot. We interviewed experts, we held panels. Actually, main findings of ours have been, well, we haven't been able to produce kind of landscape of the IT market with 7 main areas and 61 sub-areas and 187 key technologies. Definitely there are many more that are worth mentioning, but we have focused on the most interesting ones, and also
некий перечень факторов,
we have come up with a
как
list of
универсальных, которые
factors,
влияют на, ну,
universal
степи
ones
факторов,
that
то есть это не только
these
технологических,
are
но и
STPV
ну,
factors
и в том числе экономических,
and
экологических, даже
economic,
ценностных, вот всех вот этих
environmental,
вот классифицируемых по степи.
value
Вот. У нас
related,
получилось
and we
33
classified
универсальных фактора,
them.
которые
And we had
влияют на
33
развитие
universal
всех вот
factors
направлений, которые мы выделили, ну,
impacting
и, скорее всего,
all
почти
the
всех там технологий,
areas that we
прикладных
singled
направлений
out,
внутри них. И 22 уникальных
and
фактора, которые вот,
22 unique factors
влияют на развитие конкретных направлений,
that
а на развитие других практически не
influence
влияют.
specific
Вот. На базе
areas.
этих факторов, с этого
Building upon
мы
these
выделили траектории,
factors,
что это такое, расскажу
we have singled
попозже. То есть
out
это возможные варианты развития
trajectories,
именно технологических направлений.
line
То есть вот это
trajectories.
направление может
These are
развиваться вот
possible
такими-то 4-6
development of
различными
that
способами. Ну и, соответственно,
technology
4
stream
сценария
is to
развития
4 to 6
IT-рынка в
development
зависимости
trajectories
от
and focus
там,
scenarios for the
реализации двух
Russian
комплексных
IT
сценариев,
market,
двух комплексных факторов, которые мы сочли
depending on the
наиболее
conflict,
важными.
intensive factors.
Итак, вот это такой некий методологический слайд, то есть что наши методы это значит, экспертные оценки, кабинетные исследования, валидация с экспертами. Мы провели там 42 экспертных интервью с разными экспертами. Эксперты были из бизнеса, из науки, из
Business and academia.
представители неких властных структур. Вот, здесь мы опять же выражаем благодарность Яндексу. Ну, то есть мы вообще анонимизируем экспертов, с которыми мы проводили интервью, но поскольку мы уже говорим о том, что исследование было сделано при поддержке Яндекса, то здесь, да, можно сказать о том, что бизнес, многих замечательных бизнес-экспертов по разным направлениям нам предоставил
Very
Яндекс.
many experts
Можно про это
were
говорить.
referred to us by Yandex.
Соответственно, что мы сделали? Сначала мы определяли
So we, at the outset, we
ландшафт IT-рынка, там мы
find
определили
the
некие
IT
такие
market landscape.
направления по направлениям, в рамках которых мы дальше будем, то есть это был некий фрейм, в рамках которого мы
That was
дальше
a kind of
работаем.
frame.
Вот, но тем не менее этот фрейм мы корректировали на протяжении всего проекта, потому что нам важно
Was
было в этой декомпозиции
our working
обеспечить не столько
environment. Wanted
всеобъемлющесть, сколько такие вещи, как, ну,
to
во-первых, актуальность, то есть вот
guarantee the
дело в том,
relevance.
что IT-технологии очень быстро, ну, нельзя говорить IT-технологии,
Actually,
технологии IT-рынка очень быстро
IT
устаревают.
technologies
Вот
and
мы были сейчас
solutions
там,
get
с утра
obsolete
на
quite
форсайт-сессии,
quickly.
и есть такое
Morning, we
подозрение, что то, о
visited
чем мы говорили
a
через 3
foresight
года,
session, attended a
возможно,
foresight session.
наполовину
Things
уже
that we
устареет,
talked
и мы будем
about
обсуждать, как все
today
изменилось.
will
И
become
как все,
obsolete in
сколько
3
всего
years,
нового
and
появилось, и сколько всего старого
new
стало уже
things will
не
emerge.
так нужно. Вот, соответственно, мы следили за актуальностью
So
именно
we have
технологий
watched
именно сейчас, ну, технологий,
whether
технологических направлений, поднаправлений и так
the
далее.
solutions are still
Вот, также
relevant.
нам была важна актуальность с точки
Areas and sub
зрения, мы же все-таки
areas.
исследовали российский
Also,
рынок, и, соответственно, нам была важна актуальность с
as
точки
we
зрения
looked at the
текущей
Russian
ситуации в
market,
России,
we wanted
и вот,
to
по сути, это
find
значит,
out
что
what
мы
the current
выбирали
situation in
наиболее
Russia
важные для
is
изучения
and whether
направления,
it's still relevant.
поднаправления
So we singled out and
с точки
selected
зрения
the
изучения
most
сценариев. То
important
есть для
areas
сценариев мы выбрали
from the
два
perspective of
комплексных фактора, один из которых связан с
scenarios.
потенциалом международного сотрудничества, а второй
Actually,
с
one of the
эффективностью
factors
ресурсной
we looked at
поддержки
was
развития
the
ну,
governmental
технологий,
support, and the other
соответственно,
was
технологий, технологий.
international
И как
cooperation
будто бы эти
prospects.
факторы довольно
And these
сильно отражают
factors
нашу вот текущую ситуацию, в которой мы
are
находимся,
reflection
с своими такими, безусловно,
our
важными особенностями. И нам важно
current
было
situation.
ну, как бы именно в этом контексте, в том числе смотреть на вот эту вот
We could
декомпозицию
be
по
looking
направлениям,
in
по
this
направлениям и
context
ключевым технологиям.
at the
Вот. Ну и также
recomposition.
нам было важно, что мы все-таки исследуем
So
влияние факторов на развитие вот этих вот
we studied
технологических
how
направлений. И
factors impact
мы
the
группировали их в том
technology
числе таким образом,
areas,
чтобы можно было говорить о неком таком
and we grouped them
двусуммарном,
so that
одинаковом
we
влиянии
can
факторов. То есть, чтобы мы могли сказать, что вот это направление, такой-то фактор влияет, ну, во-первых,
level
мы
all
могли
the
оценить вот это
factors,
направление какой-то там циферкой, а
try
во-вторых, мы могли
to
указать характер
score all of
влияния,
the
то, как именно
factors,
вот влияет этот фактор на вот это вот направление. То есть, таким образом мы пытались эти направления
trying
составить.
to figure
Вот, дальше,
how this or that
соответственно, мы эти
factors,
55
specific
факторов
factor
перешли в
impacts an
универсальные 22
area.
уникальных, которые мы
So
сделали в
55 universal
пространстве. Это
factors and
некая такая
22
методологическая
unique
база, которая может
factors is
обеспечить
what we've
повторяемость
been
этого исследования. То
singling,
есть,
what we have been able to single out.
во-первых, можем использовать
And this
колоссальный
is a
перечень факторов для оценки
methodological
будущих исследований и
foundation for
можем
our
сравнивать результаты
further
следующего года с
research.
результатами прошлого года,
We'll be
в
able
том
to
числе
compare
и
the
в составе
previous year's
факторов. И дело в
findings
том, что
with
же,
the
когда мы
next
оценивали эти
year's
факторы, мы оценивали не только их значение, но и их,
assess these factors.
ну, немножко тавтология будет, но их значимость для конкретного
We
направления. То есть
trying to measure
значение
and
этих факторов там
gauge
может
their
измеряться только цифрой,
importance
но это может быть или
and
важно, или не
significance for
важно
this
для
or that
конкретного
area.
направления, а может быть и для всех технологий. Вот, и, соответственно, вот эта вот
for
важность может
technology by and
изменяться даже от
large. So
года в год,
the
и это
significance
довольно
may
интересно
change from
изучать.
year to year
Вот. Также мы
dynamically,
построили
and
траекторию.
it is
Траектория — это
quite
некий такой
curious to study.
сравнительно
We
довольно новый
also
визуальный формат представления возможных вариантов технологического развития. Мы выбрали,
built trajectories.
мы выбирали по
These
трем
are
факторам
options of
наиболее
technological
важных
development and
для
two
вот,
most
наиболее
important
значимых для
factors
конкретного направления. И для каждого направления мы
each of the year,
строили
and
4-6 разных
we
траекторий, возможных траекторий
built
развития.
4 to 6
Здесь мы,
different
соответственно,
developments.
строили оси. На этих факторах, как на осях,
These
построили
are the
некое такое графическое
axes,
представление возможного пути,
and
который в этих осях
the
может
trajectories
пройти,
are
ну,
graphic
развитие
representations
технологий. Соответственно, здесь как
of,
пример
of
приведена
possible scenarios for these
траектория
technologies.
для направления искусственный интеллект. Здесь
The AI
уровень зрелости
technology
технологий. Если
has
осями
been
является
given
уровень
as
зрелости
example.
технологий, который неизбежно будет повышаться,
Maturity
и
level
уровень
inevitably
зарегулированности
will
или
go
силы
up, and
регулирования,
the regulation,
ну, в том числе государственного регулирования, может
or
быть,
regulatory pressure,
наднационального, эм, который
supranational.
оказывает определенное какое-то влияние на это
So
развитие, может
have a role
затормаживать его,
to
ускорять и
play,
так далее. Ну, то есть я могу
either
на этом
accelerating or
подробно, наверное, не успею здесь
decelerating
остановиться. Ну и, соответственно, вот сценарии, у нас здесь 4 сценария на основе
development.
2 факторов.
And
Соответственно, потенциал
so
международного
these are four
сотрудничества, который может
series.
быть, ну, давайте говорить, высокий риск,
Integration.
упрощенно, там есть некие нюансы, там, что он может
So,
снижаться и повышаться, и
so the
если он
risks
будет снижаться, то он
may
может
either
снижаться
go
резко,
up
если он будет
or
повышаться,
down.
то повышаться он будет снижаться
So
плавно. И второй фактор — это, ну, давайте говорить, да, просто, что он может быть низким и высоким.
second factor.
Хорошо, все. Да, перезвоню. Спасибо.
Alexander Vasilyevich, can you please turn off your mic?
Excuse me.
Да, ну и второй фактор — это, соответственно, эффективность там, поддержки развития технологий, и она тоже может быть высокой и низкой. Соответственно, у нас получается 4 сценария. Высокое высокое значение фактора, высокое низкое, низкое высокое и низкое низкое.
The
Ну,
four
получается 4 сценария.
scenarios.
Соответственно, чуть-чуть подробнее. Вот на технологические
So these are
ландшафты IT-рынка. Здесь я
technology
сильно подробно останавливаться не
landscapes.
буду. Вот
The
это
IT
7
market, I'll not
направлений.
dwell
Можно
on
подробно
that
прочесть, там
7
мы
areas.
все это
All in
выделили и
all,
внимательно проанализировали. И у нас есть довольно много каких-то
is
выводов,
that
довольно частных, про развитие той или иной
have some
технологии,
of the
про их особенности развития в том или ином сценарии, про
very
влияние факторов на
specific
них и так далее.
conclusions.
Но тут как бы надо задавать ну, как бы, чтобы отвечать, чтобы
To
про это рассказывать, нужно как бы интересоваться какими-то,
more
делать
about
нечастные
them.
выводы, и чтобы про это рассказывать, нужно
Right,
задавать какие-то довольно частные вопросы,
delve in and ask
и
specific.
интересоваться ими. Вот. Это методология анализа факторов. Здесь я уже упомянул, что есть как бы
So this is
характер
the
влияния
vector
фактора, но
analysis
фактор может
methodology.
позитивно или негативно влиять
Factors
на
may impact
технологию или технологическое направление. Он может
technologies
быть
in
разного уровня
positive or
значимости, разное
negative
значение этого
way. They
фактора. То
may
есть,
have
если мы оцениваем
different
уровень, мы оцениваем его сейчас по пятибалльной шкале,
level. We
но
assess
можем
it
какую-то
on a score from 1
такую
to 5,
более масштабную шкалу развернуть. Ну и, соответственно, есть какие-то
or we
факторы, вроде
can
там, среднего
extend the
уровня дохода
score.
или чего-то такого, что
There are
измеряется
also
просто циферкой.
factors
Там,
like
грубо говоря, нет
average
смысла, ну,
income
тут нет никакого
level
смысла оценивать их
measured by
по пятибалльной
the
шкале. Ну или там уровень инфляции, соответственно.
inflation
Вот.
rate.
Теперь
No need
про
to
траектории пару слов.
deal
Соответственно,
for
вот
this.
это
So
пример
then,
траектории. Здесь я
then
раскрою пример
prerequisites
траектории
for building
для направления
factories,
кибербезопасности. Постараюсь быстро
cybersecurity
это
are
сделать.
taken
Соответственно,
this as an
есть
example.
некие предпосылки, что важно для направления
Some of
кибербезопасности.
the
Это не все,
prerequisites.
что
What is
важно, но
important
вот
for
для
cyber?
выделения некоторых траекторий мы использовали такую
To single out
мысль о
some of
том,
the
что
trajectory,
много классических методов, криптографических методов уязвимы к квантовым
we
вычислениям,
figured that
с помощью
cryptographic
квантовых компьютеров.
methods
И,
are
соответственно,
vulnerable to
мы
quantum.
пытаемся научиться противодействовать этому, развиваются технологии
Try to counter that
квантовой
and
криптографии и постквантовой криптографии. Это принципиально
develop
разные вещи.
quantum
Постквантовая
and
криптография — это то, как
post-quantum
мы реагируем
cryptography.
на
Post-quantum
вызовы
is very different
квантовых
from
атак, то есть
quantum
мы
ones. It's
пытаемся перестроить
developing
свои алгоритмы,
algorithms
чтобы
that
они
can
были
resist
устойчивы. А
attacks
квантовая криптография —
using
это мы
quantum
используем
computers.
квантовые
One of the
компьютеры,
quantum
некие квантовые
cryptography
технологии, чтобы
is a method of using
защититься
quantum
от
technology
каких-то, может быть, даже текущих вызовов
to
и дальнейших. Вот. И,
stonewall
соответственно, вот
ourselves
на
from
базе этого мы построили три каких-то таких
current
типовых траектории. Они могут
threats
немножко
and relevant
отличаться
threats
по уровню наклона, как
point.
бы,
So we have
по финальным точкам,
outlined
как
several
бы, но
trajectories, and they may be
смысл
different
именно
in terms of
в
the
их
angling
таком
and
отдельном рассмотрении каких-то трех принципиальных случаев. То есть здесь есть некое такое квантовое
other
спартаческое
things.
развитие
So
квантовых технологий, вот это вот та самая квантовая
possible development
криптография, да, она
trajectories
приводит
include
к тому, что у
quantum
нас уменьшается
serenity.
уровень угроз. Здесь ось — это уровень, соответственно,
So
угроз, и
the
уровень
threat
доступности
level goes down and
квантовых
availability
технологий,
of
квантовых
quantum
компьютеров.
technology goes up.
Вот. вторая принципиальная траектория
Second
называется
trajectory
квантовая
is
турбулентность,
quantum
по которой мы не
turbulence.
сразу можем найти ответ на квантовые вызовы, но на вызовы,
The
которые
response
дают
to
нам
new
квантовые
challenges is
технологии, но потом мы
found
постепенно
at
находим его. И здесь вот эта вот
is
точка
found
переходная,
as
она может
post
находиться
quantum
относительно
cryptography
оси
algorithms
абсцисс
call. So
довольно-таки в
at this
разных
point
местах, но
may
принципиально именно
may
форматы
be
когда мы размышляем об этом,
of
ну,
the
в общем-то, мы можем
axis
думать о финальной точке тоже.
x-axis.
Вот. И, соответственно, джокерная
The
третья
third
траектория, она
trajectory
связана с
is
квантообразностью, когда дело в
quantum
том, что вот эти
danger.
все алгоритмы там
It's
по
a
квантовой
wild
криптографии, они
card, a
основываются на
joker.
неких
Post
предположениях изначальных,
quantum
которых мы делаем,
cryptography
там, ну, это некая фантазия, то
they
есть,
fail
если появится квантовый компьютер, то он будет работать вот так, и, скорее всего, будет атаковать нас вот таким
algorithms
вот
to
образом.
counter
Вот
quantum
мы
threats are
придумываем, как
ineffective if a
мы сами
quantum
придумываем себе
computer
угрозу,
knowledgeable
сами и учимся на нее
and
реагировать. А если этот компьютер
capable
появится, возможно,
of
как бы атаки будут
cracking
несколько
our
другой форматности, и
defenses
там злоумышленники, они разберутся, как нас
entered.
атаковать.
So the
Вот. И, соответственно, это
perpetrators
некая такая джокерная траектория.
may be
Некоторым,
very knowledgeable and
скорее
savvy and
всего, она там
spy.
не реализуется,
So
но она
this
может
is the
реализоваться при
quantum
каких-то
danger
конкретных технологиях,
scenario.
каких-то
It is
конкретных алгоритмах. И важно про нее думать. То есть они приводятся,
unlikely to
джокерная
be
траектория, для
fully
того, чтобы
implemented,
нам
but
было о
you
чем
know, some
подумать,
of the
чего
elements and the
побояться.
pillars
Вот. Ну и, соответственно, мы выделили 4 сценария
may
развития.
may
Мы
be
их
brought
назвали,
into life.
соответственно,
So the four
цифровой
development
ковчег,
scenarios of
цифровой
ours
дарвинизм
include
как
digital
противопоставление, то есть
arc,
цифровой ковчег это
digital
некий такой
Darwinism. These are
наш
opposed to
рынок
one another.
относительно
These two.
изолирован, потенциал международного
The
сотрудничества
digital
довольно
arc
низкий,
is
мы
our
с
market is
помощью
isolated, and
эффективной
the
проверки
development
развития
national
технологий мы
cooperation
добиваемся
potential is
каких-то
limited,
своих
but
локальных успехов,
thanks
становится,
to the
ну,
support
в
for
общем, там, вот
technological
что-то мы успешно
can
импортозамещаем, что-то
attain
мы разрабатываем свое, к чему-то мы
our own
приспосабливаемся, и как-то
achievements,
вот оставляя правильные акценты, правильно
have
поддерживаем, мы
and be
идем
successful in some
в
things,
более
and
такое светлое и немного изолированное
it's
будущее.
siloed and
И этому противоставляется
autonomous.
четвертый сценарий, это цифровой
Uh,
дарвинизм, когда у нас
Counterposing is
рынок
scenario number four,
относительно свободный, ну, как мы
digital
не говорим о том, что у
Darwinism.
нас там резко наступает
The
невероятная
market
свобода, но тем
is
не менее рынок
is
относительно
in
свободный,
free
технологии свободно
floating,
развиваются. И оказывается,
and
что
the
для многих
technology will
технологий не
revolutionize
так-то важно какое-то эффективное там, государственное
unchecked,
регулирование развития этих
unbridled.
технологий. И это довольно интересный сценарий, потому
This is
что
a very interesting option,
он по-разному влияет на разные технологии. Для некоторых нужен, для некоторых не нужен. Интересно про это
as
думать. Ну и, соответственно,
well.
два остальных сценария, как можно догадаться, это там
It
изоляция
chimes differently with
среди
different technologies.
низкоэффективных
Two
государственных
remaining
поддержки
technologies
и
are
некий такой
s-
оптимистичный сценарий,
isolation
открытые
code
рынки,
and synergy of
частная
innovation,
поддержка, все мы
which
правильно
is
расставляем
which
акценты,
is
и как все
an upbeat
мы в
scenario of
правильном формате
effective and
думаем.
efficient
Вот.
support and
Соответственно,
open
дальше мы изучали
markets.
каждый сценарий отдельно. Здесь тоже нет
Looked
времени
into
рассказывать
these
каждый раз. Опять
scenarios
же, мы если будем публиковать
separately.
доклад, там
I
все
don't
это
have
можно
any
будет супер
time to
подробно
tell
почитать.
you
Здесь есть,
in detail
некий,
about
можно
that.
увидеть некие
You'll be
особенности
able
этих
to read
сценариев. То есть
our
с цифровым
report.
ковчегом мы, скорее всего,
So
будем
the
сосредотачиваться
digital
на
arc
каких-то
scenario will
локальных
focus
решениях.
upon
Здесь есть какие-то
mostly
определенные риски,
local
которые мы
solutions,
исследуем,
and there are
риски,
some of them
связанные в том
brought
числе с возможной
risks
там монополизацией этих
related to
технологий,
monopolization of the
довольно
technologies.
также мы изучили
And
влияние на конкретные
we also
технологические направления,
studied
которые мы выделили, и
impact on some of the specific
здесь есть
fields,
частные выводы про то, как будет каждое направление
some
чувствовать себя в этом
specific.
сценарии. Такие же выводы есть про другие сценарии. Тут уже, наверное, я не вписываюсь в регламент. Действительно,
So
очень много
I
тяжело
probably
про это рассказать.
don't fit into the
Вот.
time limits as I have a lot of information to tell you, and I've been
Ну да,
speaking it.
наверное, тут надо уже примерно заканчивать.
I
Как я уже сказал,
think I
там из
should be
wыводов,
winding up, and
наверное, даже не вагоны, маленькая тележка, а
key
вагоны, большая тележка.
findings
Про
are
квадратность сущности
multiple,
мы выделены, то есть у нас есть много
an
выводов
entire
про
lorry
техническое
of them.
направление, про сценарий, про
So
факторы, про то,
we
про сё. И,
have been able
соответственно,
to single out
эти выводы могут
the
носить какой-то частный
development of
характер, могут
technological
связаны с особенностями развития
fields
конкретных технологий. И мы
that
все
is
сущности, вот, которые мы
variably
выделили, мы все
sensitive
их
to scenarios
пересекаем друг с
for the
другом. Это
IT
решили, тоже
market, and
появляются интересные выводы. И в
you
этом
know
смысле это такое вот
our
наше среднее
findings
подумать, да, то
are
есть мы выделили эти
at
сценарии,
the
сделали много там
juncture of
каких-то предположений и каких-то
different
выводов на пересечении, можно
subjects of
подумать.
research,
И
and
вот наша первоначальная цель
overlaps
была определить
give
сценарий
rise
особенностей
to new
технологического
food for
развития
thoughts and new findings.
российского IT-рынка.
We wanted to
Вторая,
look
четвертая
into the
цель не до ее
technological development
достигли, но
peculiarities for this
выясняется,
market, and
что если
this is a
ставить более
very
узкие цели и задавать
broad
какие-то более
and
конкретные вопросы,
general
наше исследование, оно тоже дает на них ответ.
sector. But if
Просто
we
эти вопросы
become more
нужно,
specific
эти вопросы нужно
in
задавать каким-то
question
более
goal
конкретным
setting,
вопросам. Как себя будет чувствовать
our study also
такая технология, в какой
comes in
отраслевой,
handy,
что можно в
giving
целом сказать там
giving
про
food
там,
for
какой
thought
сценарий там,
and
как сценарий влияет на
all
разные
those
факторы, какие
specific
сценарии там
conclusions.
эм,
What scenarios impact what
ну, в
factors? We may
общем-то, про
figure.
особенности развития всего. Это уже, мне кажется, я уже
We could go
могу
into
назвать
into
самым
great
повторы
detail.
какие-то.
You know, I
Вот,
can
соответственно,
start
мы
repeating
планируем как-то
myself.
дальше продолжать эти исследования.
So we will keep investigating, keep researching, have methodological basis related to the factors. So we may either repeat this study, the same set of factors, but in different domain. And all that fundamental nature for IT and other sectors. No additional analytic studies may be implemented. We also have a category of trajectories. We just need mathematical justification and rationale for that. And something interesting might come out of that. So we thank the team working on the project. All the hosts are here leading this conference. Well, I've been able to make it in time limit.
Dear all, can you please share any thoughts, any suggestions, any questions? I have a question about methodology. Daniil, do you consider this methodology universal for any sector, for any market, or maybe this is something specific that make this methodology work for IT market?
This methodology is actually, first of all, for fast-growing markets. And what about a specific of IT? We identify a list of factors which are, most of them are specific for IT market, but we have 33 universal factors which can be applicable for other markets. Not all of them, but most of them. As for unique factors, they are just for these areas, for areas of IT market, areas of or maybe sub areas sometimes. What about trajectories? I think it's an interesting instrument for analyzing. I think we could analyze any market with this instrument, but as for me, I'm not sure that I fully understand the whole potential of this resource, of this instrument, and so on.
Thank you. And maybe you have some questions, maybe some arguments? No? Okay, Daniil, thank you so much. And then we will listen to the two presentations that are more practical. And I wanna introduce Kumar Sujanhu from University of Jawaharlal Nehru. The floor is yours. This is very interesting topic. I am very excited to listen about Chip 4 2.0. So Kumar, you are welcome.
All right. So am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So I have to share the screen, or you have my slides presentation to everyone?
Can you please share your screen?
Okay. Okay. So, all right, you can see my screen right now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. So, okay, thank you. Thank you so much to the organizer for giving this opportunity to participate in this prestigious conference. So, first of all, I'm Sudhanshu Kumar. I'm a PhD candidate, Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies in Jawaharlal University, New Delhi, India. So, currently, I'm doing my PhD on artificial intelligence in Russia. And in my PhD program, I'm seeing what kind of developments are happening in AI in Russia. And I'm also visiting fellow to Moscow Institute of International Studies. I just participated in a fellowship, the Inter-Russia Fellowship, which is a very prestigious fellowship right now in India in 2023. And I was also a participant in Sochi World Youth Festival. So since my research in Russia,
I'm sorry. We see only part of your presentation. The left part, we see you are sharing screen. So maybe can you please close it?
Okay.
So yes, now we see everything. Thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for pointing out. So yeah, so since I'm doing my research on AI in Russia, so I see that what kind of developments are happening in Russia, and for that I also have to understand that what kind of developments in the field of AI is happening in different parts of the world, especially in countries like USA, China, and Europe. That these countries, all these countries are creating their own AI ecosystem, and in that respect, when they are creating their AI ecosystem, the semiconductors or the chips are one of the most important aspect of any kind of AI development which is happening right now in any part of the world. And even if AI is going to excel to a stage where we can create artificial super intelligence (ASI), or we can move forward in the direction of quantum computers, all these things can be only possible when any country can have a very robust semiconductor ecosystem. Without it, it's not going to be very possible. Without having chips, it's very difficult to create smart and really helpful AI. So in that respect, I will start with a quote. So this quote is by Masayoshi Son, CEO of SoftBank, and he says that people usually compare the computer to the head of the human being. I would say that the hardware is the bone of the head, the skull. The semiconductor is the brain within the head, and the software is the wisdom, and data is the knowledge. So these things, whenever we talk about like semiconductor or AI, quantum computing, virtual reality, all these technologies, we think that there is, if we can focus on one aspect, we can develop the technology, but not. I mean, these things, especially data, software, chips, all these things are interconnected. And if you want to really make any kind of substantial development in the field of information technology, you have to look at all these dimensions. Just focusing on one aspect cannot help in the long run for creating any advanced technology. So I will introduce my topic, and since there is a chip war 2.0 going, especially after the emergence of AI in this domain, because chip war is happening from a long time between China and United States, but the advent of AI, especially after ChatGPT, we can see that chip war has gone on a very different level. So in that way, the Russia's quest to develop its own semiconductor ecosystem is also against the backdrop of what is happening in chip war 2.0. And this chip war 2.0 is in a very intensifying global competition. And the main aim of this competition is to have a semiconductor dominance. And this competition will definitely have a lot of economic implications for economic power and national security for different countries. And as we know that when it comes to Russia, Russia is facing a very severe production limitations in chip manufacturing, and it's happening because of technological isolation, happened because of sanctions. But Russia, taking these challenges into factor, has embarked on a very ambitious journey to create its own semiconductor self-sufficiency. So if you look at the Russia's semiconductor industry, it remains significantly behind global leaders when it comes to domestic production, and the technology nodes which are very essential for creating these chips have not matured to a very great level. Because if you see that, for example, primary chip manufacturers of Russia like Angstrom or Micron are currently restricted to producing chips at only 65 nanometer to 100 nanometer nodes. And this technology is actually like generations behind what is happening currently in the world with respect to cutting edge 3 to 5 nanometer processes, which are being used by different global companies like NVIDIA or Google or Samsung. These global companies are creating chips at this level, having a 3 to 5 nanometer level, 5 to nanometer nodes. But Russia is strict to this 65 nanometer to 180 nanometer nodes. And we have, and Russia has to reduce this size, and this requires a huge amount of investments. And we can see that the Russian semiconductor market has reached approximately $8.5 billion in 2024, and it is going to reach to like $17.9 billion by 2033, which represents a compound annual growth of 8.70%. So since I'm writing this paper, and my paper is actually a working paper, so I am still currently doing a lot of literature review. I have done a significant amount of literature review. So my literature review has been done in with the aim to operationalize my research questions from 1 to 3, which I will tell you later. But my literature has been divided into 4 parts. The first part represents the chip war 2.0. It talks about that what is chip war, and it mentions about that what can be done for the global governance of technology. The second part of my literature review consists of Russia's key problems in semiconductors, that what kind of problems that Russia is facing today when it comes to semiconductor production. And third part also reflects that what are the strategies which has been adopted by the Russian establishment to boost its semiconductor industry. Then the last part of literature review also mentions about that what are the contemporary challenges and opportunities which are in the semiconductor industry for Russian IT companies and government and all the agencies which are actually working towards creating a robust semiconductor ecosystem. So my paper has one hypothesis, which is the only hypothesis, and I have to look forward to it. The hypothesis says that the Russian semiconductor industry has a potential to play a critical role in chip war 2.0. So Russia has to find its place that is chip war, which is predominantly happening between China and United States. Can Russia play a very critical role in this, seeing that these two nations are engaged in a big technological competition? It also gives a room for Russia to create its own semiconductor ecosystem where it can also help other nation states, especially the nation states of global south, which do not want to be embroiled in this technological competition between China and United States. So Russia can play a critical role and find its place where these two nations are fighting. Well, Russia can create its own capability and help other nations which do not want to get embroiled in this big technological competition. So I have 3 research questions for dealing with my hypothesis. The research question 1 states that what are the key problems associated with the semiconductor industry in the context of chip war 2? What are the possible strategies which can be devised to create success for the Russian semiconductor industry in the chip war 2.0? And what are the challenges and opportunities for the global and local players in the Russian semiconductor industry? And I have divided my paper into 6 sections. First is introduction, where I will provide a background information on development and rationale behind chip war 2. The second part also discuss about the importance of semiconductor chips and what are the needs for developmental frameworks. And it also states the research objectives and what are the significance of study. So this section 1 will cater to the research question 1, which is like what are the key problems associated with the Russian semiconductor industry. My section 2 will give an overview of Russian semiconductor industry, where I will explain key elements of chip war 2.0 and key problems associated with the Russian semiconductor industry. This will also cater to research question 2, research question 1. The section 3 will talk about the geopolitical implications. Section 4 will give a comparative analysis of strategy developed for semiconductor industry. And the idea behind this is to provide a comparative analysis of the existing and proposed frameworks and strategies made in different countries, especially in US, China, India, Japan, that what these countries are doing to develop their semiconductor ecosystem and what Russia can learn from these countries. So it will identify what are the similarities, what are the differences, and what are the potential areas of conflict or cooperation with these countries. The section 5 will also look at the challenges and opportunities. This will cater to research question 3, which talks about the challenges and opportunities of the local and global players in Russian semiconductor industry. So it will explore the potential opportunities with countries like India and China and other countries in the global south. And it will also analyze the factors which might affect the adoption and adaptation of strategies proposed. And finally, the section 6 will conclude with recapitulating the research problems, the main findings, and concluding with some academic and policy implications. So right now, since my paper is a working paper, I am like with current findings. What are my current findings? And I hope that these findings will improve with the new knowledge that will I get from the suggestions from the people in HSC and my further study about this topic, which I will do in future as well. So when I see that, what are the findings today is that there are a set of opportunities and there are a set of the challenges. And both these opportunities and challenges are interconnected with each other. So for instance, one opportunity creates one challenge, and one challenge again creates one opportunity. So it's like, like back and forth. If you're going to solve some problem, it will again create a problem, and then again it solves a problem. So for instance, if you are going to address the gap in semiconductor ecosystem, the main problem, the main challenge that it is the semiconductor ecosystem of Russia is facing a dual impact of, first is the geopolitical constraints, which has happened because of sanction and the war that is happening, and also because of domestic inefficiencies which Russia has because of the bureaucracy or because of the brain drain or whatever, the things which are happening. But this challenge creates an opportunity, and it creates an opportunity to collaborate with like-minded countries with the help of tech diplomacy. So if you want to boost your semiconductor industry, it's very important that you have a robust international collaboration with different countries and with different corporations in different parts of the world. But if you are going to collaborate, you have to keep in mind that there exists a certain challenge. And the challenge that if you are going to collaborate, you have to decide to what extent the collaboration should be limited. Because if you are going to collaborate like full-fledged, it can create an over-reliance on a certain country. For example, if you're going to collaborate with China on a very bigger level, it can create an over-reliance on Chinese technology. So, which will not help in balancing the strategic autonomy. So this is a challenge, and for this challenge, it is important that that you should come with a solution. And solution is that Russia should build a strong fabrication center like TSMC, which is based in Taiwan right now, and the US is looking forward to shift it to Arizona. So every country understand that they have their own fabrication center, and very strong fabrication center, very advanced and developed fabrication centers, which can create new chips, which can create more advanced chips, and which can really actually fasten the pace of this new AI development, which is happening around the world. So you need fabrication centers which can really create advanced chips. And this is an opportunity, but main challenge again, the last challenge again, I have seen that in my findings that just creating chips is not going to be enough. New developments are in AI and other emerging technologies are happening because there's a lot of innovation happening at the level of data and at the level of software. For instance, after the launch of DeepSeek, we have seen that NVIDIA stock markets haven't fallen because we don't need that much requirement of chip. DeepSeek has shown that even with less advanced chip, you can create robust AI models, robust large language models. And in that respect, what they have done is that they have optimized the data and the software. So if Russia wants to develop its AI capabilities to a full-fledged level, it has to look at all these things. It has to look at the data, it has to look at the software, and it has to look at the chips as well. So only focusing on chips, if you are going to make only advanced chip and your data and software is not very optimized, I mean, you are not going to create any robust product, whether it's for military or whether it's for civilian applications. So all these things are very important. So when I see that what are the key problems in the Russian semiconductor industry is that there is a technological lag with the other countries, and it is happening primarily because of the sanctions and limited domestic capabilities, such as the inability to produce competitive nodes below 14 nanometer, and which highlights a very critical gap in the semiconductor industry of Russia. And it is happening because of insufficient investment. And the investment is not very sufficient because even despite allocating approx 3.19 trillion rubles for semiconductor advancement, the investment falls short of estimated funds, which is needed for creating any impactful progress. And that is hindering the growth of AI-based applications in Russia, especially in civilian sector. And that is also happening because of the skilled workforce shortage, bureaucratic inefficiency, and limited educational focus on semiconductor technology has created a talent drain. And most of the people who are like very intelligent and talented in Russia are looking forward to move to other countries to make their career in semiconductor industry or AI or other advanced technology. So it's very important because, this is a technological war which is happening, and the IT engineers or AI engineers or very smart people of any country are their most essential resource. If they are moving out, I mean, you are losing a resource, a very important human resource, and India is facing the same problem. We are one of the most brightest engineers we have, but all our engineers are moving to US or Europe for making their career. We have been unable to retain our AI talent, which is moving from India. So government is focusing on creating some AI ecosystem in India, but till time we have been failed to create any robust AI ecosystem where we can keep our most brilliant AI talented to create AI products for Indian market and not for the US or European markets, which again, these smart AI agents move to these countries, they create products there, and these products come to India again. And we are just become data subjects for these countries. So in that respect, and one other challenge I have found that there is a geopolitical isolation. Sanctions have created a limited collaboration opportunity for Russian establishments and Russian technological companies, which is actually hindering the access to critical equipment and knowledge transfers. So this can be a major obstacle in creating efficient AI equipment. So what are the proposed strategies which can be created to like really solve this problem? And inspired by the semiconductor success stories of China, US, India, the report outlines, the paper outlines some actionable measures. The first is that to have a national strategy. It can be possible with establishing a comprehensive semiconductor roadmap, emphasizing more on R&D collaboration, having clear production target for quality semiconductor chips. So, you have to do this. You have to include this in national strategy. And there should be a very intensive financial incentives for the companies who wants to make advanced semiconductor chips. For instance, in India, we have in a production-linked incentive (PLI) scheme, which provides grants, tax breaks, and subsidies to stimulate investment in semiconductor industry. So Indian like these kind of schemes should also be in Russia. There are schemes, but these kind of schemes should be like have more financial incentives for the people who want to build semiconductors, and that also requires infrastructure development. For instance, like creating semiconductor parks with shared resources and improving logistics networks to support the local manufacturing. For example, the US that I have mentioned is building its own semiconductor fabrication center in Arizona to reduce its dependency on TSMC, which is based in China and may have problems with, which is based in Taiwan and which may have problems with China in future. So that's why they are building their own fabrication center in Arizona. And the one more strategy is like to create a workforce development. I mean, you have to pick smart, talented individuals and students from different universities and take them to one place to create new and advanced semiconductor chips. And for that, you have to develop targeted educational programs, which are only focused on this thing, not just focusing on science or mathematics or technology engineering at large, but just for this thing. I mean, having a targeted educational programs. And in this context, AI lens network can also be very useful for Russia, where you can like leverage the talent from different other countries as well. I mean, from the BRICS countries can really help to develop the semiconductor industry of Russia. If Russia has been able to like attract the talent from these other countries. In that respect, international collaboration definitely is important, where you can explore a partnership with China and other non-Western countries in the global south to access the essential technologies and expertise. And definitely, I mean, countries like India have a huge skilled workforce. Most of the workforce is actually moving to China, moving to US and Europe. And in that way, Russia can attract these talents from India and can really get assistance in developing their semiconductor ecosystem. So finally, this is the methodology that I have used. I have used theoretical methods for analysis, classification, abstraction, and doing the synthesis and generalizations. I have used some empirical methods also for observation and description. I have used primary resources, secondary resources, and normative resources. My approach is deductive and quantitative. While my variable, in terms of my variable, I have the dependent variable in my research is semiconductor policy making mechanism, and independent variable is what are the states effort at implementing the semiconductor initiatives, and intervening variable is that what is the role played by various sectors like private sector, government, policymakers, and academicians in developing the semiconductor ecosystem of Russia. So all right, this was my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Do we have any questions in the chat? or maybe you wanna ask some question with your voice. And I have a question about skilled workforce. I believe that this is a very important topic for a lot of industries in Russia. And you're right that these skilled people are required in China and a lot of different countries. Can you please share your ideas on how a country can become more attractive for talented people from all over the world? For semiconductor industry or maybe any other industries?
So first of all, I mean, they are to attract any talent from different parts of the world. I mean, you have to have two things into mind. And the first is the financial incentives. You have to give higher packages to people what they are getting abroad in any part of the world. For example, for instance, US and Europe, the financial incentives are the primary motivation for any young person to go and work anywhere. We know that. I mean, the first factor is that. The second is that you have to give some creative freedom to these people. That if they are coming to any place, if they want to create some new product, new ideas, or new way to do the same thing, you have to give them a creative freedom. I mean, if any institution can say that you have to do on this only thing, and this is your mandate, and you cannot go beyond your mandate, then you cannot, even though you are going to attract these talented people, you are not going to make full utilization of their talent. So two things are very important for any country or any group or any corporation, any society, to give a very a very intensive financial incentive to the individuals and giving them creative freedom to do whatever they want to do with their whatever the talent they have.
Thank you. I agree. Creative freedom is extremely important. And we have a question we have raised hand.
Yes,
Guru.
Professor. Yeah, thank you very much. Mr. Kumar, thank you very much for your insightful presentation. Since we are ultimately talking about an economic activity, competition among the actors is, of course, inevitable. If we consider the current context throughout the point of the chip war, and also take into account Russians increasing the cooperation with China, I would like to just ask from point of your view, in the case of the India and Russia, does a convergence of the interest prevail or are conflict interests more dominant?
Can you just please elaborate the question in the final section that you really want to know about what are the possibilities between India and Russia, or like you want to understand that how Russia, I mean your last points that you have made.
I understand, Mr. Kumar. Just I would like to try to ask simple. In the current case, in the case of India and Russia, can talk about the convergence of the interest prevail or are conflict of interest more dominant? Taking into cooperation with Russia and China.
Okay, all right. Okay, I understand your question. Like Russia has a certain level of alliance with China, a very great alliance, which is also happening in technological field, especially in AI. And while Russia and India has a certain level of good friendship and cooperation, but which is primarily driven by defense and security. So definitely, I think this is a very challenging aspect where diplomats and policymakers have to see that whether this collaboration can really be fruitful, because it's something very strategic when it comes to technology like AI or quantum computing or any other advanced technology. The convergence is possible, definitely. It's not that, because Russia and India have a very long history of mutual benefits, friendship, and cooperation. So it's up to the current establishment between both the countries that whether they want to make this history of cooperation between two countries to go into the field of AI and other advanced technologies as well. And it will only be shown in the future. And I would like to, I would definitely would love to see that the cooperation between India and Russia can move to a place where it is similar to what we have done in the past. But the fact is that before that, we have to develop our own AI capabilities. Until unless we are strong enough, and I have to admit that, for instance, for most of our AI needs, India is dependent on US and European markets. Similarly, Russia is also dependent to a certain extent on China for its technological needs. So if we can first develop our own independent capabilities, then only we would be in a position to have a fruitful cooperation between these two countries, between Russia and India. That's the thing that I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to invite Tamara, our last speaker. Tamara, you will have 10 minutes. Yeah. Tamara, we do not hear you, but we see your slide.
Да, коллеги, прошу прощения, я не все кнопки включила. Да, коллеги, добрый день. Я представлю доклад, посвященный видению будущего умных городов.
So I'll present a report on smart cities, and we'll look at the suite of digital solutions that will shape the future of smart cities.
Гораздо менее футуристичный, более такой приземленный, я бы даже сказала, да, по сравнению с первыми двумя, и особенно с
So it's a more down to earth versus the previous reports versus the panel that we heard in the morning on AI. So the results, the findings that I outline are part of a bigger project on the development of the standards for smart cities for BRICS. Now, why? So there are two main reasons. We looked at the existing rankings, indices, smart cities, ratings, and most of them emerged quite a long time, and they don't catch up with the pace. It was back in 2020, 2021, and our landscape has changed so much, and there's new capabilities that have emerged. So it makes sense to take into account. That's one, and many of the indices, many of these standards have been introduced by the Western countries, and they take into account their development patterns, while BRICS economies have their own idiosyncrasies, particularly given the fact that these are some often small cities and smaller scale cities, and that could be a platform for pilot projects and the rollout of prospective technologies. So we've embarked on the efforts to design the standards for the smart cities for BRICS economies. So you can see the geography of BRICS economies and their role in the global economy. We looked at the capitals of these countries, the biggest cities. So if you look at the academic publications, there's growing interest towards smart cities. So you can see that the number of publications has increased to 3.6 times compared with 2016, and these charts are even more telling. The interest, the relevance of the smart city concept has increased by more than 22 times. We looked at the number of internet queries year by year. So that's the number of publications. In the post-2021, there's been a major leap. Post-2023, there's been a leap upwards. That's thanks to the pool of new digital technology, which it's like kind of a smart city plus concept. So it's a transformation of smart cities thanks to this pool of the cutting edge technology. So like big data, Internet of Things. So the technology that's underpinned smart cities from the emergence of this concept. But what we saw over the past 2 years was driven by a new concepts, new paradigms. That's thanks to 5G, 6G going forward, AI, and digital twins. So there's been a quantum jump in the research of these concepts. So we need to incorporate the following dimensions. The previous speaker talked about technology push. As we design our vision, we also took into account some trends, social economic trends, political, environmental trends. I don't want to drill down into them. I'm limited in time. But you can see that up here, you can see healthcare, creative economy, etc. And we can look at the strategy of the BRICS capital's development. You can look at the lower chart. So every strategy incorporates the efforts to develop 5G, 6G, AI, and big data, digital twins, digital platforms. Like most of these strategies have a client-centric approach. E-government services. The development of digital services has upped the requirements of the people to these government services. When you go onto the government one-stop shop website, we expect to get a service just like you can get from a private company. So that sets a high benchmark for the management of the smart cities. So here are some of the use cases. Drones for passenger or cargo transport in Abu Dhabi. That's 6G in the United Arab Emirates. That's Shanghai's data market and exchange. So you can exchange data for AI training or Addis Abeba's city currency, the local one. So as part of our research, we did expert interviews with more than 50 experts, most of them from abroad, from the BRICS countries, and given their opinion, and the opinion of our experts from the High School of Economics, on whatever we've learned, we've put together a map like this, a vision of digital solutions. It's broken down by the key sectors of the economy. So let's look at the lower left corner. You have the ICT, that's the foundation of smart city, 5/6G, gigabit plus internet. So that's the linchpin of smart cities. In terms of governance, that's in the middle. You need a digital twin of the smart city. That's the peak of your evolution. I guess this is the most complicated, this is the most expensive solution, but that's where all the data are accumulated. And it's not just a 3D model. That's, you may have hundreds and thousands of layers of different data, like in a digital twin of Moscow.
About the socioeconomic situation, transport situation, and utilities, helping us to monitor the situation in real time. So digital twins application is process for modeling, simulating, and predicting different scenarios of the urban development. In some of the cases,
образа будущего, да, этой отрасли тоже будут цифровые двойники энергосистем. Естественно, это смарт-грид, уже, в общем-то, понятная всем история. В сфере транспорта это, конечно, умные транспортные системы, то есть это координация трафика, это оптимизация его, в том числе с помощью искусственного интеллекта. Это постепенное внедрение беспилотного транспорта в городах, причем и общественного, и в перспективе частного, да, то есть автомобилей, по мере решения регуляторных, в том числе, вопросов. Это мобильность как услуга, тоже достаточно понятная концепция, но тем не менее она будет дальше развиваться в этом направлении. И это воздушная мобильность. Теперь это строительство, это информационная модель города, это различные цифровые решения для стройплощадках, это умные здания, BIM, естественно, следующих поколений. Вот, цифровые двойники общественных пространств, тоже такой инструмент для управления их.
Housing. Digital twins can represent the sensors, all the systems, piping and grids. It is segregation systems and litter withdrawal systems and it's in plow vehicles also. Maybe help over the twins and education and social sphere, AI and personal healthcare. Technology allows the 4P, personalized, personified, predictive, and participative medicine. 4P is a wearable sensor, digital health, track record, a profile for each person. For the sake of focusing on prevention, treatment, health, security and safety sector, video surveillance. It's the cameras will be able to detect and predict situations in indoor culture and sports. We offer a number of digital platforms for tourists, digital services for sports that can help make efficient use of that domain. And also the cyber sports, developing this cyber and digital infrastructure. So I think I have got at that because we have exceeded the time limit.